So we're good to go? All right. So hi everyone, both online and offline. My name is Johannes Drerup. I'm a professor for philosophy of education and educational theory at the TU Dortmund University in Germany, as well as a guest professor at the BU. And today it's my pleasure to introduce you to Abongile Sonkosi, who is currently doing a joint doctorate at Rhodes University in South Africa, as well as at the Vrije University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands, which is supervised by myself, as well as Henk van den Heuvel from the BU and Sue McKenna from Rhodes University. And Abongile, as you actually see, is currently visiting us here at the BU, where she's preparing a pilot study for a PhD research project, which deals with the experience of Black women during their doctorate, both in the Netherlands as well as in South Africa. And yeah, I think it's a super interesting project, a super rich topic, and a very promising project as well. And her research is funded by the NRF as well as by NAFIC. So before Abongile started her PhD journey, she received her BA as well as the MA from the University of Fort Hare in South Africa, and afterwards she lectured at the Walter Sisulu University, also in South Africa. And as you will see now in her presentation, she is very much interested into gender studies as well as feminist theories, and currently with a strong focus on intersectionality, Black feminism, as well as African feminism. So, Abongile, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Johannes. That was like a great introduction. Thank you for that introduction. I would like to greet everybody that is in the room with me and everybody that is online. Thank you for joining us.
I think you need to speak up a little bit. I'm not sure if people can hear you otherwise.
Oh, okay. All right, that's fine.
No complaints yet.
Oh, no
Okay,
complaints
good.
yet. Yay. Okay, yes. Okay, let me continue with my study. As Johannes has already introduced me and my study, then all I have to do now is to continue and present to you my study. Okay, I just want to give you a brief introduction to my study. So, please help me. All right. Yeah. So this I should down as well. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much for that. So this proposed study intends to contribute to the ongoing debates in higher education about social justice. This is an intersectional study of Black women's experiences of doctoral education. And as it was said, it will be conducted in 2 universities, one in the global north, Vrije Universiteit, Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and one in the global south, Rhodes University in South Africa. I think I found this interesting that intersectionality challenges the notion that only countries facing homogeneous challenges can be compared or studied. It allows for coalitions from various and differing contexts to take place in order to challenge the structures of domination. So that is my answer to when I am asked, why am I studying a university in the global north and a university in the global south? To move on, I'll just give you a background of my study. The significance of the doctorate has changed and increased. There's been an increase in the demand for doctorates and an increase in the awareness of the need for social justice in higher education, especially for those who have traditionally been marginalized. Now, when we look at South Africa has a deep history of inequality, and it is visible in its landscape, and especially in higher education. So the institutional culture in historically white institutions like Rhodes is deeply rooted in coloniality, and it has forced Black students to conform and Black students' lived experiences have been ignored or silenced. Now, the rise in protests that were in South Africa in 2015, 2016, they made it clear that South Africa is nowhere near post-apartheid plurality. When we look at the Netherlands, the distinctiveness of Black women's experiences in higher education has not been well researched. Several questions remain that need to be answered regarding the representation of Black women in higher education and in particular at doctoral level. Now, I'm just going to give you the rationale of my study so that you can understand why I'm doing this study. I'm using intersectionality, and this study understands that each participant's doctoral experiences emerge from the intersection of multiple identities in the matrix of domination and oppression. This study will not offer a simplistic, homogenized story of Black women's experiences in doctoral education in two contexts. This study will, all right, that slide was not edited, but I will continue with the rationale of the study. So it does not offer a simplistic, homogenized story of Black women's experiences in higher education. This study will examine how their multiple intersectional identities and social power structures affect their doctoral studies. This study will use intersectionality to understand the experiences of Black women undertaking doctoral education in Rhodes University and in Freie University. So we are here at the research questions. So these are my research questions. The research question is, how do Black female PhD candidates experience their doctoral studies at Rhodes University, South Africa, and Freie University, Amsterdam in the Netherlands? My sub-questions are, how do Black female PhD candidates at Rhodes University in Amsterdam understand doctoral education, and why are they undertaking their PhD studies? How do these candidates at Rhodes University and Freie University experience the supervisory relationship? How do institutional cultures, structures, and processes at Rhodes University and Freie University affect their doctoral education? Now, the theoretical lens that the study uses is intersectionality, as I've mentioned before. This lens, the lens that the study will use focuses not only at individual social identities. It's not about identity politics, but it looks at the landscape of power dynamics, the structures that influence the human experiences and life opportunities. Using Crenshaw's three-dimensional approach, I focus on structural intersectionality, where we focus on racism, sexism, and the other isms. And then we look at political intersectionality. Political intersectionality looks at these women and how they fight or their agency, how they navigate their way through these structures that I have mentioned. And then we look at representational intersectionality. This one is how Black women are represented, and most importantly, how do Black women represent themselves? And then I look at African feminism. Now, before I go into African feminism, the first thing that I would like to do, I would like to honor all of the feminists that have wrote before, all the feminisms that have existed before. Now, African feminisms grew as alternative contributions to the conversation about gender in response to the way in which white feminism, and despite many overlaps, even Black feminism, failed to articulate and recognize African realities. African women have resisted patriarchy for centuries. However, it was not known as feminism. And a lot of Black feminists today, or a lot of Black women, have resisted being called feminists. But we are here now. African feminisms provide an ethical orientation that opens our thinking about pedagogy and research in ways that recognize Black women from their own contexts and perspectives to make knowledge that is relevant and that is owned by them. Hence, we speak about representational intersectionality. Now, let's look at the research design that I will be using. The research design that I'll be using is, yes. So now from each university, 2 to 5 participants will be purposefully sampled for the study, which uses narrative inquiry and photo voice. Okay? In the case of this study, the participants will be people who self-identify as Black and as women, and who are engaged in doctoral studies in VU and VU. Now, for the narrative inquiry, I will use 2 phases. Phase 1 is the narration phase, where I will just ask the parental question, such as tell me about your doctoral studies, to present the general topic to the participant. This is where I will allow the participant to talk about their journey and to talk about themselves. And then after that one, I will use the guided conversation phase. This is the phase where now I will ask the in-depth questions. And then I used photo voice. I will use photo voice. The photo voice will be, the participants will be encouraged to brainstorm photo voice ideas and find emerging themes, which is photo voice is when the participants are asked to take pictures of their doctoral journey, and we will come up with themes based on the research questions. Okay. So now to analyze my data, I will use the intersectional analysis. This one aims to explore the difference, the intersecting patterns between different power structures and how people simultaneously position themselves and how people are positioned in multiple categories such as gender, class, and race. And then for the ethical considerations will be discussed in detail in the ethical form. And for validity, this study will also use member checks where findings will be tested on the group of people that the study was collected from to establish validity. Now, to speak of positionality, that's positionality there, that's fine, you don't have to move it. My positionality in this study poses the following challenges. In this study, I'm both an insider because I'm a student at both Rhodes and VU. And then I'm also an outsider because of the fact that I do not know the challenges that the students face at home, because I'm facing my own challenges. So even at Rhodes, those women there, they are facing their own challenges. So I am an outsider in their experiences. That is where my presentation ends. Thank you. Thank you.
So now we go into the questions.
Yes.
And Naja, you'll probably see their questions online. I wonder if you could share some of your initial reflections already. You kind of presented the proposal for your research, but you've been here now for a month. Could you talk a little bit about some of the kind of findings, preliminary findings, observations that you've made in respect to your research questions?
Oh, all right. Even though I'm still about to.
Yeah, I know that you haven't collected any structural data yet, but just for us to kind of give us a flavor of what we could expect from your findings.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I do not want to preempt me, but I do know that the first time that I arrived here, I realized that I'm glad I put that part that says people who self-identify as Black, because you cannot just look at a person and say you are Black and you are not Black. So I feel that there's going to be a lot of rich data that comes out in those experiences when people have to self-identify as Black, they have to self-identify as women. And then in terms of what I think the data will look like, I'm at a point where I want the data to surprise me, because we're still figuring out at this level which level should the doctoral candidates be in. Because if you look at candidates in the first level of their study on the first year, it's different to the second year, the third year, those challenges that they're going to experience. And it's also different to the fourth year, when the person's already done with their study. So those experiences will differ in that. I think that's something that I picked up and something that we've discussed with my supervisors on whether which participants should we choose, what kind of data is going to come up if we look at second years.
Yeah, the point about self-identity is an interesting one, and I do wonder if that's also a function of the environment that you're in. Like, I know that some colleagues of mine in Chile would say I become almost Black or non-white when I get on a plane to a predominantly white country, because then you would be seen as non-white, whereas maybe in your own country you would be considered white. So it also is kind of maybe a reflection of other people in a country and how they identify you. Is that something that you think will like identity and self and identifying in a certain category is a function of the environment?
Okay, I think I will note that. I think I will note that question, because I'm thinking how should I answer that question? But I think it's something that I should look at in my study and not try to come out and try.
Yeah. How have you experienced that yourself?
Okay, how have I experienced that myself? I honestly, that's a very good question, because I haven't really looked at how I experience this, because I'm also part of the study. I'm also part of the study. So I've been focused on the participants, how my participants are going to look like, how everything is going to go. Seeing in South Africa that it's easy to say, hey, these are the participants that I want, this is how the study is going to go. But then here, how I've been positioned, how I've positioned myself, that's something that I still need to go into. I think.
Yeah, I'm talking about from personal experience here as well, given that I've done work in South Africa as well, and I never particularly identify as white or talk about myself as white necessarily, but when I do research in South Africa, I am white. It's, you kind of become that identity, or that's how I experienced it when being also talked to as a white person. You almost also become that identity, I guess. Yeah, but that's just a personal reflection. It'd be interested to hear how some of your participants would reflect on that as well, I guess.
Okay. Okay. As you're speaking, I do like that, because you are touching upon intersectionality. You are touching upon the fact that you are positioned in a category.
Yeah.
You are positioned as a white woman.
Yeah.
You are positioned as white woman, and then probably in a certain class.
Yeah.
So that's where your intersections need to give out a certain experience or a certain probably experience. That's the right word to use.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it varies over context then.
Yes, it does. It varies over context, because when you get into another continent, or when you get here, then it changes to another thing, like to different intersections of your own identity.
Yeah.
Some which are imposed, but some which you have for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I will look into that myself.
Yeah, thank you for your interesting presentation. I've got two questions actually.
First, I'm interested in how
Could
you.
you introduce yourself as well?
Oh, yes, of course.
That would be, I mean, not everyone will know you probably.
Yes, that's all right. My name is Linda, and I am a PhD student, second year now, studying siblings of children with disabilities from the series game that we developed for them. And then about my first question, I was wondering how you are recruiting your participants. Oh, okay. How I'm recruiting my participants. So what I will do is I'll send out a call to the different platforms. Okay? So the call is every woman that identifies as you identify as a woman, and then you are probably in your second year of study. So I'm sending out a call. I want people to be able to say, I don't want to go to people and be like, oh, can you come into my study? Because then I'll be identifying them as a certain kind of category. So I would like them to identify themselves and say, hey, I self-identify as this person. Because if I do it myself, then I'll be looking at it the way Melanie says it, that she's in a space, and then this kind of identity is imposed on her. So that's why I'm saying in my study that they have to position themselves. It's not a matter of me trying to position them in a certain yeah.
And which platforms are you using for that?
I will use the general emails. Yeah, so
You
everybody
would
has.
have suggestions as well, right? I guess,
Yes.
on how to reach PhD students. What are some of the communication channels that you are using as a PhD student that she could perhaps use?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, mostly email at the
Yeah.
moment, actually. Yeah, we would try some Slack groups, but that didn't really work out. So I think email is still the main mean of conversations.
And even WhatsApp, like if you put it like on a WhatsApp group, and then people can.
Yeah, we don't have that. Maybe also in the Learn newsletter
Yeah.
could be, or
Yeah.
other newsletters in the group.
Yeah.
I think those are read by some people.
Yeah.
Because you're targeting all faculties.
Yes, I'm targeting all faculties as long as you are as long as you are in your doctoral studies.
Yeah. Yeah, the newsletters, not just of Learn, our research institute, but I know that other research institutes also have newsletters and communication to PhD students. So that could be a way to also reach them. Yeah.
Perhaps just a short follow-up on this, because yesterday we had this very inspiring discussion on this question. Because I mean, it would be also very interesting to see or to talk to people who stopped their PhDs, and there we want. I mean, and then feasibility is an issue, and I mean, all in all, we are not entirely sure yet, but probably third year will probably make sense. Something like this, people who are still in the process, but there may be also be some advantages to have interviews with people who already done it, either successfully or not, and then to hear like what are the reasons, etc., etc. Even though one may already have indicators with people in the third year who say like, okay, these are the challenges, and my impression is that I cannot make it because of whatever. But I mean, but.
And I think another interesting point, another point that I want to put across is going back to that question of how has my experience been? I mean, being in Rhodes University in South Africa, and then in Amsterdam, like if I have to give my own experience, and if it means something to the data, it would be something like this. There's like a total difference in how both universities are. There's a total difference in the challenges, in the institutional structures that are there, but there's also those things that you will not easily pick up, things that you cannot easily pick up, like feeling. I think there was a sense of feeling safe, safety, that okay, as a woman, I can be able to travel at 9 p.m. in the evening and just go to a shop, or come stay at work until 7 and then go back to my place. But then if I see my experience in South Africa, I'm like, I have to be at home or I have to be safe. I need to be in a space where I feel safe, in a space where I feel like I'm not going to be putting myself in danger. So there are those experiences, and if you look at them, what are the chances of being able to do your PhD freely if you are in a space that allows you to be free as a woman, to exist as a woman? Because in this study, I'm not trying to say Black women are marginalized, coming into a space saying Black women are marginalized, but I'm just coming into a space trying to say that Black women have a voice, and their voice needs to be heard at the highest level of know, and their voice needs to be heard in the way that they articulate themselves.
Yeah, and saying that that's really hard to have if you don't have the physical safety to even travel or have those conversations, I guess. So it's also those wider issues that need to be addressed to be able to function in an academic environment, I guess.
Yes, so those intersections of being a woman, being Black, even though the intersection of being a different class, or being an academic, being a PhD student, puts me in a position of power or in a position of privilege, but then being a woman still puts me in an intersection where I'm like, oh, all right, then I feel oppressed in a way because my safety is not because I don't feel safe sometimes. And then being at an intersection where you are Black, you are a Black woman, where a Black woman has been at the lowest level of no, and then other intersections like okay, I think I'll stop at those intersections, but
Yeah.
it raises a lot of
Yeah.
interesting conversations when you think of it, when you really talk about it and look at how it is structured.
I think you had a second question.
Yeah, I
no?
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your elaborate answer. It's really interesting. I was also wondering, you were talking about using photo voice, and I never really heard much about it before. So I'm really wondering, how are you going to do that, and what are you going to ask the people to photograph, or are they really free in what they will take a picture of?
Okay, thank you so much. So I like that idea of giving people a voice. Photo voice is about giving people a voice that they have control over. Do you understand? So I will not necessarily say this is what you should take a picture of. They need to take a picture of what best describes their journey. Because, for an example, there was a study that was done in, I think it was in UWC, in a university in South Africa, or Stellenbosch, I'm not sure the university. So they were asked to take pictures of how their experiences as women in the campus. So when they took these pictures, there was a woman that took a picture of the bus, or it was a taxi or a form of transport, and she said, and then another one took a picture of a train. And then she said, even when I travel in this train, I don't feel safe when I have to travel at 4 a.m. And then another one took a picture, so you can really understand, even though she's written something below that, then you can have a picture of what she's going through. Another one took a picture of a pub. There was a pub that was in the university, and when you are leaving that pub, there are many condoms that are there. And then she said, existing in this space as a woman does not feel safe for me. So it allows us to hear their voices, to see what they're talking about, and to give their voices a lot of power.
Thank you for such interesting piece of method. Yeah.
Are there any questions?
Not exactly questions, but we do have a couple of comments. If you'd like, I can also.
I don't know if we can have people talk about some of these.
Yeah, we could also.
If there's someone making these comments, they want to talk about this. It's your supervisor.
Yes. Hello, Sue.
Don't know if she can come in and talk about some of this. I don't know if we can hear her.
I think we can hear her. Sue, you can come in and comment.
Yeah, thanks, Abongile. I loved hearing about your initial experiences in the Netherlands. I must say the safety of Amsterdam just blew my mind when I first visited there. It's incredibly empowering. You can walk around at night. It is incredible, and that is definitely going to condition the experiences of your participants, that physical safety issue. I just want to go back to an earlier comment, though, around how the national space frames the extent to which race is a marked and significant personal identifier. And I think that's well worth reflecting on as you are doing. I mean, some people would argue that in South Africa, maybe we're too focused on race. I don't think we're too focused on race because clearly we have a huge racial issue, but perhaps we're too focused on race to the extent that it blinds us to other identity markers that also have a role to play in oppression and privilege. But on the flip side is certainly a lot of the literature that we're reading, like Gloria Wekker and others' work in the Netherlands, is that the opposite is true in the Netherlands, that there's this kind of color blindness discourse that everyone's equal, race doesn't matter, and that obscures the racist structures that are at play. So I think that's definitely something worth looking at, the extent to which, and intersectionality will allow you to do that, the extent to which personal experience and identity connects with these very big national structures of racism and sexism and so on. You're looking great, by the way. Netherlands suits you.
No other questions or comments?
I have one question.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you considered also using a survey, sending out a survey to students just to document some more general patterns, because I can imagine that the experiences also differ, for example, between different faculties or even departments, which you might be able to document by using a survey, or whether you think that's not a method that really fits your research objective.
Yeah, but I don't think of using a survey because I'm only using the qualitative method because I think it's time we heard the deep and rich stories because I'm only taking like five from here and five from there. So we want to hear the richness, like the deep experiences. What do they experience? But
I can both, right?
Can both. I am aware, but that's a very good. I think that's a very good suggestion. I'm not sure if I can use it for my study, but I think it's.
Yeah, maybe just look at what comes out of those 5 stories, and if you then think, there might be patterns here in different experiences that might be tested more qualitatively. Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate that a survey might be quite difficult to do in terms of how to ask people questions that you don't categorize them through the questioning almost. But yeah.
But based on what Sue is like her comments around the idea of in South Africa, the idea of race is like in your face.
Yeah.
And then the idea of race in the Netherlands, it's sort of not very evident or clear. So getting people's getting people's opinions about race and the topic itself, it would be a very good thing. Like we would see how people see race, how people's opinions are about issues of intersectionality, issues of gender and whatnot.
Yeah, so I guess I mean, I'm coming in from a wide perspective, obviously, but I guess if you were to talk to students here who identify as being Black, they will talk about very nuanced ways in which they are being addressed, I guess. They will experience very informal types well, informal is not the proper word, but under the surface types of differences in how they are being approached. I think, I mean, given that you are coming in from the context of South Africa, where physical safety and very kind of hard-on racism is an issue, it's going to be really important, I think, to think about what's happening under the surface here, and to be able to pick up on that, given that your own experience is very much of the in-the-face type of racism. So to you, you need to be kind of really aware of that. There's probably lots of stuff happening under the surface here that might not be quite visible, or that people are maybe not really aware of, or maybe even that capturing in a photo will be really difficult to do. So it's something to think about in your methodology as well. Like, it maybe has to do with how people look at you, or the specific wording that they use, or maybe that after a meeting they're not talking to you, but they're talking to others, fellow white colleagues, PhD students, and that's where opportunities get shared, and you're not part of that conversation perhaps. So that's the type of experience that I'm thinking about, and maybe using photos is difficult to capture that. So it's something to keep in mind, I think.
I like the word that you use, nuanced.
Yeah.
Nuanced. Yeah, I kept saying nuanced. So even with the photo voice, it's not a matter of take. And I was just making an example with that, how that person used it.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of how you interpret it, how what it means to you. Even if I take a picture of the park, I'm like, oh, here's the park. Those things for me first.
Yeah.
Even if I take it, it depends on what comes up for them. Even if they take a picture of their dog and be like, this dog has been my support system throughout this whole journey. So it depends on them. The power is up to them. What kinds of pictures they decide to take, how they decide to interpret the pictures. Hence, they can at the end of the picture they can write what does this mean for you? What does this mean for you? Even if it's a picture of someone drowning, what does this mean for you? Were you drowning in the
No, I now better understand how you would use photos to talk about this. So it doesn't have to be a reflection of an immediate experience. It can also be a symbol to talk about some of your experiences.
Exactly. Thank you so much for your question. Any other comments? There's nothing more online.
So if there's nothing wrong, we can also finish a bit early.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this platform to talk about my study, even though I was a bit nervous. Thank you so much for giving me this platform and giving me a place to voice out my thoughts. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you for presenting. It's really interesting to hear.